Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Kenia Miranda Verdugo, and I am the Smart Justice Program Manager with the Michelson 20mm Foundation. Thank you all so much for joining this continued conversation, where we will discuss California's best practices for students inside prison. Before we begin, and as we give folks a few minutes to hop on Zoom, I would like to share a bit of background on our foundation and describe what we have in store for you today. Founded by Dr. Gary K. Michelson and Alia Michelson, the Michelson 20mm Foundation is a private nonprofit organization that seeks to accelerate progress towards a more just world through grant-making, programs, and impact investing. 4 years ago, we launched our Smart Justice Initiative to leverage higher education as a catalytic force for transforming the lives of justice-involved individuals, while also reforming the justice system itself. We work to transform the communities impacted by our country's punitive legal system to forge brighter, more prosperous futures via education. As part of that commitment, we were proud to recently form the Smart Justice Think Tank, which is a coalition of higher education champions and directly impacted leaders in California. The Smart Justice Think Tank developed a guiding framework to inform a common agenda for scholars, advocates, practitioners, legislators, and reentry organizations in post-secondary higher education, both in prison and on-campus programs. So to give you all a best practices overview, today we're going to be discussing students inside prisons. Our next webinar, which I will be dropping the registration link towards the end of our presentation today, will be on January 18th, 2023, and we will be discussing students transitioning from inside of prison to on-campus programming. And then finally, our last webinar of the series will discuss students thriving on college campuses. Today, we have the honor of hosting a few members of the think tank who will share their expertise, having helped incarcerated students legislatively, educationally, and institutionally. Our second panel discussion will be moderated by my colleague, Danny Murillo, and will consist of scholars at the College of the Redwood who will speak on their current lived experiences as students inside Pelican Bay. We are looking forward to learning more about their experience and the ways we can best support students inside of prisons. As a note, the opinions expressed in this webinar are each participant's own perspective, which in no way represent the opinions or views of the Michelson 20mm Foundation. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that you will be able to ask questions via the Zoom Q&A function throughout panel discussions. With all that said, it is my pleasure to now introduce our first panel. I would like to begin by introducing Peter Folks, who is the Department Chair and Professor of Administration of Justice for Cerro Coso Community College and the Director of Public Services. For the last 6 years, Peter has been leading faculty in the development of the Incarcerated Students Education Program, a national leader in face-to-face prison higher education, focusing heavily on professional development structures, decolonizing of educational practices, and centering the work on student outcomes instead of recidivism. We also have Tai Griffith, who is the founding manager of the Justice Education Initiative. In this role, Tai oversees Inside Out prison exchange classes, co-curricular justice-related activities, prison policy efforts, and community campus partnerships. Previously, Tai worked with the Prison Education Project at Cal Poly Pomona, where she served as a program coordinator for PEP's Reintegration Academy and as a career counselor. I would also like to introduce Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is a first-generation formerly incarcerated legal studies major. After fulfilling the UC transfer requirements while in prison, Kevin applied to UC Berkeley and was accepted. He began classes at UC Berkeley in fall 2020, a month after he paroled. He is now supporting other incarcerated scholars and is committed to abolishing the carceral state. Kevin is in the process of institutionalizing a correspondence program offering a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies for students incarcerated in California's general population maximum security prisons. So with that, we will now begin the first panel discussion. And quick reminder to the audience, please feel free to ask questions to our panel using the Q&A function throughout this discussion. So if our panelists can please turn on their video and we can begin the panel discussion. I will begin with a question for all three of you. And whoever wants to jump in first, please feel free. So what would make a good and helpful instructor within the Department of Corrections in order for a student on the inside to thrive?
I can jump in here. So I think one of those things is we have to kind of understand our context as instructors of going in, is that we're not, even though we're walking into a prison facility or detentions facility, jail, something like that, that we're not a function of that organization, though we have to abide by the rules and stuff. And Senate Bill 1391, to which has allowed us to enter, sort of exemplifies that with the interaction with the community. And so bringing that community into the classroom, I think that that's an important thing. And so it's at first, it's like understanding what our relative role is within the classroom, is that we're not just another function, that we may be performing the R and CDCR within our state. We are not CDCR employees. And so establishing that clear distinction up front, I think, is one a very helpful thing. It helps build rapport and trust within the classroom to where then we can actually get into the subject matter. So that's something that we've seen within our program, that we have to actively work to encouraging faculty to distinguish themselves as different from the structural system of the correctional department.
And I did get a question, what is CDCR? So CDCR is the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So it's the state agency that oversees and handles all of the prisons within the state of California.
I think accessibility is very important. I recall when I took my statistics class, I struggled. I did not have a tutor. I did not have anybody to turn to. The instructor for that class, was not available. When I'd write, I wouldn't receive a response. So, some of these classes are complex, especially the courses that are required to fulfill the UC transfer requirements, and ensuring that the incarcerated students have access to the instructor before assignments are due or before midterms or finals is vital.
And I agree with everything that Kevin and both Peter said. And just to add on to that, I think, a faculty that's going in or an instructor that's going in really does need to understand that, one, it's not our classroom that we would be in on a normal college campus, that we have to remain flexible, adaptable. There are times that I've showed up and maybe I only have 4 students because the rest are on lockdown. So really being able to adapt, and then also understanding the unique needs of our inside students, which is vastly different, and trying to be available as much as you can, leaving time at the end of a class to be able to answer questions, just because they don't have the same kind of access to instructors that our on-campus students may have.
Going off on your response, Tai, are there any instances of absenteeism due to COs, correctional officers, simply not wanting to bring the students to the designated classroom space? I know you talked about, while they're on lockdown, and that's different, that's mandatory, but are there any instances of absenteeism just due to not wanting to transport them to the designated classroom space?
So my experience has been with institutions that are on board with us coming in and teaching our classes. So I have not received any reports from my inside students that has ever been a case. It's usually if they are on lockdown, but I'm not sure if Peter has experienced this, or Kevin.
I've, frequently 602'd, which means, I frequently filed administrative appeals. I often challenged conditions of confinement, and, as a result, I was, retaliated upon or against, for my legal activism. And, there were times when I was supposed to be in class and wasn't popped out, and the instructor would have to call the principal, and the principal would have to call the building, and the guards would play dumb, but that's definitely something that that incarcerated students face, and definitely something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, certainly. We deal with it quite often. We're on 7 different yards in our program, 8 yards. One of them's a fire camp, so we don't really have that big of an issue with that. They come or they don't come. They're not, housed in a cell block or something like that. But certainly on our upper yards, we wind up with this issue happening quite a bit. Happened to me just yesterday in my class, and not getting people out, and then we call and they say, oh, well, they're a refusal. But I have other students in the same block who were like, I was just talking to him through the door, and he's saying he's standing in front of the door with his book and his paperwork waiting to come out, and then he's not let out. So it's like people from within there. So there's certainly some of those things that happen. I would say like what it's because it's distant from the classroom. So the educational officer that was there, we've worked very hard to build that partnership with them. So when I say, hey, can you call again? I need these 3 people. He'll call again, but then it's like, I'm not sure to what level he's willing to advocate for my student that's in the housing block, right? Where the issue actually is happening. And so we've had good luck in like our close circle of our institutional partners, getting them, like Kevin said, like maybe getting the principal to call over or do something like that. My class is 5:30 to 8:30 at night this semester. And so if I'm at nighttime, I really only have the people that are there on night watch or second watch who are able to actually help out. And sometimes they don't help out very much. So it's a constant thing. And I think we deal with it a lot. I don't think the understanding from the institution or from the yard level, especially within custody, is the same level as it is obviously with headquarters. Because if you bring that up to headquarters, they'd say, oh, no way that should ever happen. I don't know. I walk into class and it's 2 to 3 students per class every single time that this is happening. So, and it's a revolving door of who the students are this week where it is happening. Same thing where we have quarantine lockdowns, something like that. It's a 5-day quarantine for an employee who tests positive, but it's a 3-week one for my students. And if they're in the housing block, they can't test a program. And so these things vary so much. And so they're wildly inconsistent, but they do have a major impact on the class. And that's the hard part about, if it was a consistent issue here and there where I could like pinpoint exactly what it was, we can work with our institutional partners to work on those things. But when it seems so retaliatory, it pops off and cycles so much that it's hard to point to it as this is happening to this particular student over and over again. It's that it'll happen to this student, and then next week it's a different student, and it just sort of disrupts the class. In addition to, if I'm teaching a face-to-face class, we have our required lecture hours that we're supposed to go through and do. So how do I manage that with the students? Do we do correspondence packets? Do we do something like that? It really throws it in. I'd say every single one, we have 87 course sections right now, and every single person has had to deal with this this semester specifically.
Thank you all for answering that question. We do have a question in the chat. It says, I'm guessing this is geared towards the educational programs. Have any of the programs considered certifying any of the professional prison staff, like counselors who have graduate degrees, to become faculty to teach courses? Or would this be like a good idea to do?
We do that in our program. I think out of 57 faculty inside right now, we probably have 5 to 8 that actually work for CDC, for Department of Corrections. And those people are selected, very specifically. We go through a couple different things to make sure it works out. It does build our partnership locally. It's probably why we have a very, very strong partnership, is because of that. So yes, it does work. On a broad scale, we found that there are major philosophical differences between the instruction that happens with the GED, ABE, high-set programming versus what's going on in college. So we have to work hard on the professional development side to sort of bring that person on board to what the ethics and philosophy are within our program that are very student-centered within the program. So we have to make those adjustments, but it's certainly possible and very helpful.
We also have another question going back to the COs not allowing students to go to their classrooms. The question is, how successfully have COs been reprimanded for holding students from attending classes? I know, Peter, you talked about it not being a consistent enough problem to really bring that up. So I don't know if you wanted to discuss anything further.
I could answer it. And so I think structurally from our program, my perspective is that we're not interested in recreating punitive systems for people. So what we do is we work with the union chapter president. And so we bring them in on what the schedule is. Hey, if you got guys, you need to be bidded to a position, or you want more overtime positions, we are the option that does that. No other option really does that. So we are consistently allowing for an expansion of employment opportunities. We speak the language to the people that we need to get the point across to. And so instead of getting people reprimanded, which certainly we've had to get folks talked to, that's for sure. And that is successful. We only pull on that string every once in a while when it's something really egregious. We'd rather balance it on the side of, we're going to do the programming anyways. So the better it functions, the more opportunities everybody inside the facility gets, including potentially, cohort programs for COs, things like that. So we try and approach it both sides as non-punitive. We're an educational open access institution. And we feel as though having done that a few times before, it can really damage some of the ongoing partnership.
Yeah, my experience has been prison officials, they're more interested in backing up the guards than reprimanding them. They have a culture where they they just back each other up unconditionally, and really won't hold one of their guards accountable. It's been their culture forever. It makes it so difficult to create change.
We have another question about what happens to instructors that are just not a good match for the prison setting. How do you scope or filter those instructors out, or go about choosing a good staff that is a good fit for that setting?
I can go, unless Taid, do you want to pop in on something? You're more than welcome. Just interrupt me. So what we work on is, this is hard. This is a really hard one to pin down, and it really has major impacts on the program. So that's sort of the work that we've done is when we get to scale, our problems grow at scale as well. And one of the things that I'm very interested in maintaining is some quality control within our faculty ranks that do go inside there. It can be one errant faculty or somebody who thinks that they are doing something that they need to be doing that could derail an entire program and cut us out of an entire prison facility. So we serve 3 facilities, but across the state, that's 35 plus facilities, 20 programs. And really it comes down to an access issue for students. If we're not performing the way we need to be performing within there, we are not going to be able to maximize the access for students. So for us, we look at quality control on the front end. So we have an internal shared governance committee. We report to the college council, the decision-making body of that. Everything comes to us. When we hire new full-time instructors, we get seated on we go to our faculty in the prison and we ask for people to be seated onto the hiring committees. We have developed hiring guidance for our HR department from the committee that deals directly with our student program on the inside. And then we also are asking every new faculty at the school similar types of questions to see how they feel about it, because we also don't want an internal threat to come against us, somebody who's an obstructionist on our main campus perhaps, or something like that. So initially, validating those things, also having the right type of qualified people. In California, it's minimum qualifications, which is like a master's degree and a pulse, basically, for a particular subject. So we like to sort of guide a little bit beyond the minimum qualification and then be integrated with those department chairs that might have nothing to do with the prison, but need to hire people into it. So we sort of become a sounding board. We're a clearinghouse committee for all things incarcerated student related. So that's one way. And then, of course, following through, our union does have requirements for evaluations for adjuncts as well and part-timers, as well as for full-time. So we are deeply integrated in that process to ensure that the mechanisms that exist at the school already exist. Then we have the additional layer, which is what happens in the prison could get you removed from the prison. It doesn't get you fired from the school. So then we have to balance that out. And that's where the area where we go in hard with professional development and culture building in our program to help guide people into the direction that we're looking for. And it's not prescriptive. It's just a matter of, here are some very clear whoopsies. So we created sort of internalized policies, crosswalk them to the department operating manual, or Title V code section, and said, this is why we can't do this, this, and this, is because it is directly in violation of the Department of Corrections policy manual or our Title V state code. But here's our requirement under Title V education code. So how do we marry those things together? We think that the professional development approach is a functional way to move through there. Instead of basically adding an entirely new layer of rules to everybody, we allow them to be educated well enough to navigate those things on their own, and then have an open space for people to come back. So instead of an instructor that's struggling and failing, we try to provide a culture of care, is what we call it, within our program, so that if the instructor is struggling, they have somewhere to come to 3 different faculty coordinators and our program coordinator before they even get to a director or a dean. There's a lower level that people can come, and then we can discuss the issues and we can help problem solve things like that.
And I'll just quickly add on to that, because we do quite a unique teaching environment. We do the inside out model. So what that is we take our outside students from the Claremont colleges and our faculty, and they go into the prison, and our outside and inside students learn alongside each other. So in order for our faculty to participate in our inside out classes, they do have to go through a 6-day really intensive training. Half of the training is done on the college campus. The other half is done in the prison. And it's done by folks who are directly system impacted, just to ensure that faculty understand, the environment that they're in and so on. But ditto to everything else Peter said.
We do have a question that I guess makes us take a little step back. So it says, how do you go about getting into your program while incarcerated? Kevin, I don't know if you want to talk about how you started doing educational programming in the inside, and maybe Tai or Peter can take it away, speaking on the programming side.
I began taking courses before Prop 57 passed, so the milestone thing, wasn't in play yet. It was much easier. I just contacted Coastline Community College and got the registration forms. Coastline didn't offer all the UC transfer requirements, so I had to go through Lassen and College of the Redwoods as well. But it wasn't it wasn't too difficult. There wasn't a wait list at that time, but I believe there's a wait list now for many of the correspondence colleges.
And then for a next question, which is a question I had, and we also have on the Q&A, how does transferring to a different dorm or a different prison affect incarcerated students' educational journeys?
Conditions of confinement are huge, and my experience was the Department of Corrections did not support me at all. There are many conditions that are overlooked that can have an adverse impact upon an incarcerated student's education. For example, I remember the day before uh, one of my midterms, I saw a friend of mine get killed on the yard, and that's difficult to process the day before a midterm. Um, you know, when you have people around you, who are maybe young and coming in and have, life without or long sentences, and they're not really on the educational route. Um, there's not much support. The incarcerated student is really doing it alone, um, in some places. But I every counselor I had, I let them know that I was trying to fulfill the UC transfer requirements, trying to get to UC Berkeley, but they never transferred me to a prison that may have been more conducive to my education. I did it all, um, on level 4s and level 3s that were on lockdown. It was and it's difficult when the department doesn't support the students in their educational goals. So that's definitely something that uh, can and should be addressed.
Thank you for your response, Kevin. We have a question about accommodating students with disabilities. And if wanting to do that, through your educational programs, do you ever get pushback from the prison side about reasonable accommodations not being feasible inside?
Like I don't know if there was a disabled student program um, in there, like there is at the UC system. Like I know the disabled student program, in the UC system, the student, can get double time on exams, or a note taker, or early enrollment, or extensions on turning in assignments. Some things may not logistically allow for that, but um, I know when I was taking correspondence courses, I didn't know about the disabled student program. Um, so yeah, I mean uh, that to my knowledge, that's something that um, hasn't been extended to incarcerated students, uh, and that's definitely something that could be developed or extended um, to the incarcerated students in there.
And just to add on, because Kevin is absolutely correct. As an instructor, I think that's one of our responsibilities, is to, understand any limitations that our students may have or any additional support that they may need, with the understanding that we are in an environment where I know some outside students may be able to tape record or have some other kind of technology that assists them in the classroom. Whereas our inside students don't have that opportunity. So I really do think that because those accommodations often are not provided for our inside students, that it does place that burden on the instructor to really ensure that their classrooms are as equitable as possible.
We do have a few minutes left before we begin our second panel discussion. So I did want to take the time to ask if you all can describe the educational barriers you encountered while being a student in prison or teaching in prison, and how do the best practices address those barriers?
I'll go. Let's see. So the biggest barrier I have is my own institution. Despite what many of us in the field also feel we have a problem with our DOCs and things like that. Not saying that's a perfect relationship. When it comes to direct access for students and getting them everything that they need, my own institution is the barrier. That's because higher education institutions, it's create barriers and have for hundreds of years, 120 years, or at least 98 years in California with community colleges. So even though we're open access and we have some other things, some of the barriers that we have come up, things like random fees, transcript fees, the inability for counseling to meet with all the students effectively, educational planning, how we're going to get the BOG waiver or the Cal Promise waiver done, whether or not our degree pathways are barriers within themselves, having different requirements, at one location versus another location, or within one department versus another department. And so one of those things was us addressing that with our institution. Just because people say that they really want the program to work at the school doesn't mean they're always willing to also say, let's waive the fee for the Honors Society. That took students and faculty working together to do something like that, to get 300 people entered into our Honor Society chapter within the prison that meets with our Honor Society outside. We had to waive all of the fees for Phi Theta Kappa. So we had to activate our foundation and things like that. The transcript fees was another one. We had to use student equity funds until eventually we just literally wrote it out of our board policy so that we don't have to do that anymore. Those are some of the things. So it's worth looking internally first to see where we are creating barriers, because my passion is one thing, but reality commonly, they're not in alignment. They're incongruent. So being really reflective about it is my suggestion in how to address student inequities first. Look at our own institutions and don't think just because we're going into a prison, we're doing everything right.
So I applied to 4 UCs and 4 CSUs while I was incarcerated, but I had a barrier to knowledge, to understanding the courses that I needed to take to fulfill the UC and CSU transfer requirements. Then once I understood the courses that I needed to fulfill, I had technology barriers. I wrote UCs and CSUs and asked for applications, but I came to learn that everything is filed online. I also, had barriers in terms of help with the personal statements for the UC applications. I didn't have anybody who could kind of give me advice on what to write about. All I had were my experiences incarcerated, so that made it difficult to answer some of the personal insight statements. So now, with the Smart Justice think tank, and now with Underground Scholars, Project Rebound, Rising Scholars, we have some of these entities in place that can help incarcerated students chart a UC and CSU pathway, and who can also help with personal insight statements and file the applications while they're incarcerated.
Thank you all so much. And I will just add the final question: is there a way that educational spaces could implement some type of mental health support, considering the experiences that we've talked about so far?
That's a tricky one. I think that it's important, like with the best practices, it's what are we doing as an institution? I think is the right way to look at it, and not look at the best practice, say, you're all not doing this particular thing. Like, what are we doing to do that? And so supporting students is difficult in the mental health area, because you have things like Coleman versus Brown and like Supreme Court decisions that have had an impact on mental health access within, at least within our facilities in the state of California. So it's a tough one, but I think understanding it, there's one thing, which is getting in clinically and trying to address those things. There's the other things of being informed to those things, right? And being responsive as a program and having a culture of care and those kinds of things developed and explicit within our program, so that when those instances arise, that we have a way to respond to them instead of just being caught flat-footed with nothing. So I think that's one of those things we have to kind of internally look at it. We are not allowed to, though, in our currents in the state of California, we're not allowed to intervene on mental health things like sometimes at four-year universities, they have like mental health counseling and things like that. In this case, we're not allowed to because the purview goes to the Department of Corrections. Doesn't mean we can't do all the other soft work that surrounds that, though.
Thank you so much to all of you for responding my questions, the Q&A questions. I know we put together these best practices months ago, and we continue reaching out to you all and extending invitations to continue to talk about the best practices. So I just wanted to extend our gratitude for agreeing to be a panelist for us and sharing your wealth of knowledge and your experiences. So we will now begin our second panel discussion, which will be moderated by my colleague, Danny Murillo. Danny Murillo is the Smart Justice Fellow at the Michelson 20mm Foundation. In this role, he co-led the Smart Justice think tank, the coalition of higher education champions and directly impacted leaders. He is the co-founder of the Underground Scholars Initiative at the University of California, Berkeley, and was a media representative for the California Prison Hunger Strike Solidarity Coalition, which is a statewide movement to end the practice of long-term solitary confinement in California prisons. In 2020, as the program analyst at the Campaign for College Opportunity, Danny authored the Possibility Report, From Prison to College Degrees in California, a research publication that highlights the unique barriers currently and formerly incarcerated students face on their path towards a degree. Currently a graduate student at California State University, Long Beach, Danny's master's thesis examines formerly incarcerated people's educational experience in the security housing unit at Pelican Bay State Prison. Through his scholarship, policy advocacy, and community organizing, Danny Murillo focuses on ending the practice of solitary confinement and expanding access to higher education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people. Please take it away, Danny.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be facilitating a conversation with two currently incarcerated students who are members of the Pelican Bay Scholars Program through College of the Redwoods. So before I start, I'm going to read their bios, and then I'm going to give Matt, one of our participants today, the opportunity to read some of his poetry. So start off with Jimmy Navarro. Has been a Pelican Bay Scholar at College of the Redwoods since 2018 and will be graduating in the fall of 2023. Originally from Southern California, he grew up in a single-parent home and is the first person in his family to attend college. However, he feels incredible pride in being the first in his family to attend college. He is also saddened to realize that his mother had to experience many discriminations because she could not pursue higher education. Jimmy's academic goals after completing his associate degree is to continue towards a BA. He hopes to pursue a career as a counselor for youth caught up in the school to prison pipeline and bring awareness to young people about how the system impacts people's lives once they end up in prison. Jimmy enjoys occupying his time reading, drawing, and keeping in touch with his loving family. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Matt Barnes is a Pelican Bay Scholar at College of the Redwoods. He graduated with 2 associate's degrees in liberal arts, behavioral and social science, and sociology transfer. His academic aspirations are to pursue his bachelor's degree in English at Cal Poly Humboldt. Some of his interests are reading, writing poetry, and spending time with his family and friends. Through his educational journey, Matt realized he could be part of the solution by breaking the cycle of incarceration and changing his community. Raised in the gang atmosphere, he knows the destruction and negativity that lifestyle brings. Matt believes he can show youth a constructive and pro-social lifestyle through his testimony and poetry. He believes those who have experienced the problem of incarceration are best situated to create the solutions. Welcome, Matt. So,
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and give you the time to share one of your poems with us, and then we're going to go ahead and get into this Q&A.
All right, I'll be reading a poem called Hope for Tomorrow. Wasteland of concrete and steel, a hellish divide of hate driven by racism and fear. Lost are our youth behind these walls, led astray by those who have lost hope long ago. Without hope, you lose sight of who you truly are, the essence of humanity. There is still hope, do not fear. to bring those lonely souls back home. You just need to show that you care. Open your mind and realize it does no good to lock a person up for life. There is no safety in an eye for an eye. You can't take back what has already been done. What's important is to learn from the past while pushing ahead towards a future equal for all. Not to lose sight of nor condemn our brothers and sisters to a life of incarceration, because there is power in second chances, and there is still hope that they'll one day again walk amongst us. Only this time equipped with the knowledge that their actions affect all of us. We are all in this together until the end, with the common goal of rebuilding our communities. So don't lose hope for tomorrow, because tomorrow brings hope for all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and open up this question. It's a question for the both of you. Jimmy, I'm going to go ahead and ask you first, and Matt, you can follow up. So wanted to ask, what are your thoughts, opinions, or concerns, whatever you want to approach it, about California's best practices pathways from prison to college?
My thoughts are that having higher education in prison provides self-awareness, it provides confidence, and a new reality for incarcerated men who've only experienced strife throughout their life. So having this available to them, they're really able to find a new approach once they're reintegrated into society. They're able to find successful jobs if they wish to, or they're able to better impact their communities if they wish to go out there and share what they've learned through their experience, whether it be through that stripe or that new change through education. So I think that having this available to men in here only benefits us and puts us in a better path towards success.
Yeah, I agree with that. I believe it's long overdue. California's best practices allows for that equal access to higher education for all formerly and currently incarcerated students. This is a good thing because education is important to making a successful reentry. Without an education, the cycle of incarceration just continues.
For sure. Thank you. And Jaime, I wanted to ask you, what made you consider getting a college degree while incarcerated, and what impact has education had on you during your incarceration?
Being a first generation Mexican American and coming from a single mother who wasn't able to complete a higher education, or because she only had an 8th grade education, and seeing her having to go into the labor force and work day and night to support me and my brother impacted me a lot. It really changed my way of seeing how the system works overall. So when I came to prison, one question that I always had, why is it that some people have better opportunities than others? And I started to read, I started to question, and I started to get involved with education, but it wasn't a big thing. It was just something like, reading books and having inquisitive conversations with people who probably knew a little bit more about it and could inform me better and give me a righteous path to follow. So when the opportunity presented itself for me to attend college, I realized, this is something I need to do. This is something that I need to actually apply myself to. And I started inquiring about it, and my friends who were also involved and were interested in it told me, look, this is what you do. This is the people you contact. This is how you're going to go about it. And that's what I did. And once I took that first step and really got committed to it, to me, it was a whole different experience of I was demystified, because we go through life with a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts that we think are solid or are beneficial to us or help us, but in fact, they're not. These are things that have probably been indoctrinated in us, and we just adhere to them because it's like a basic way of living life. So through my education, I've learned that there's things that society does or that you could do to help society as well, So to me, it's impacted me in the way that it's opened my eyes. It's given me a new sense of myself. It's given me a new ability to be able to help another person who might be in the position that I was when I was younger. So that's how it's impacted my life.
Thank you. So now I have a question that's going to be for the both of you. And if Matt, if you can go first, And the question is, what barriers do incarcerated scholars encounter in a post-secondary education prison program? And how can the California best practices address these issues and barriers?
There are many barriers that incarcerated scholars face every day. One of the main issues this semester has been ducting issues with work conflicts, but that's more to do with the software issue with SOMs, not allowing a person to be in two places at one time. The best thing that we can do is, work with the COs and come to an understanding where maybe if there is a ducting issue, common sense says, let them come to the classroom because they're doing something productive. So, but we have a lot of helpful COs here at Pelican Bay that help us navigate this stuff. So, but yeah.
Thank you.
I
Jaime?
believe that the issue is space. The prison is big enough that you have only 3 classrooms sometimes running, so there's a capacity. So say there's 18 students, right? And there's 3 sessions throughout the day. You got 54 students, which is 162 students that get a certain type in the morning of education. And then you got waiting lists where people are waiting to participate in education, but can't get there because, like I said, there's not enough space. The same thing could be said about at night when they run a college. There's only so many people who could attend. I believe that the prison's big enough and there's other space available for us to have classes, whether it be in the gym or whether it be in these kitchens that are not being occupied where, our food is being cooked. Those are spaces that could be turned into classrooms and actually people could go and participate. Right now, something that's been accessible to us or given to us is computers. So that's another step forward that also helps. But I think that if we were to open up a couple more classrooms or spaces where we could come together and actually create a education department or somewhere where we could learn, it would be beneficial for us. So that's like a concern of mine. And also people on the yard have spoken about it, like, what, if they open the gym or they open up this space over here, we could have a classroom. And that, like I said, it would alleviate the waiting list and it would help more people who want to occupy their time in a positive and productive way to attend school and do something positive for themselves.
Well, thank you for that. That was a very thoughtful response. So next question for the both of you. And again, Matt, what skills have you acquired through your life experience that helped you succeed as a Pelican Bay scholar? And this is for the both of you, but
firstly, I would have to say the 2 skills that I've acquired throughout my lifetime that has helped me succeed in education, especially the Pelican Bay Scholar Program, is patience. Sometimes things are hectic and out of our control, so we have to be patient, and time management skills. And that was really big when I was getting my degrees. I was trying to find time to maneuver and navigate everything and just do the work.
that's something I'm still dealing with as a time manager. I totally get that. Yeah. Jimmy, sorry.
For myself, it's been determination, responsibility, accountability, and willpower. I'll say determination because you got to be determined to change your life. You got to be really willing to do something positive for yourself. Responsibility and accountability. You take responsibility to do the homework. You take responsibility to apply yourself in class, to be respectful, to bring something to the class that's going to create more of a learning environment, something that's going to, generate ideas and give people something to talk about, and not just go home with the same drag that maybe your friend's trying to talk to you about that doesn't lead to nothing. To me, it's more about encouraging people to actually participate. So that's what I'm saying when I say a responsibility and accountability for myself is coming in there with the mindset that I want to also educate from what I'm learning. If somebody is falling behind, I want to be able to encourage them, tell them, look, man, this is what they're teaching us. This is why they're teaching us. And this is how we could, better ourselves through this. So the willpower, I say, because sometimes you may get lazy, you procrastinate on a paper, you procrastinate on doing your reading and research, but you have to have some type of willpower to motivate yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to sit myself down and I'm really going to apply myself and I'm going to go ahead and do this homework because it's essential for my grade. It's essential for my future goals. So that's something that for myself, it's been important,
For sure. Thank you. Just real quick, this is not part of the question, but I wanted to ask, do you guys form like study groups outside of class?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. Especially like the dedicated ones. Yeah.
Yes, something that we do, like, because everybody has different levels of learning and different ways of understanding things. So if there's a person who understands it better than the next person, and that person really doesn't get it, and we all come together to an agreement, like, okay, well, who's the best guy for this? We go and ask that person, hey, can you teach us what is it that you learned and why is it that you learned it so quickly versus us, not knowing it and coming to class unprepared and not being able to actually turn in our work or participate. So yeah, a lot of times we do create little study groups or we go and ask questions, or if somebody is able to come to class and run into somebody that knows it from another different block or whatever, then we communicate. So we do have little study groups, we do have little dialogues, and it's for the betterment of a person who's actually attending college.
For sure, thank you. So Matt, I wanted a question for you was to persist in their educational journeys, what strategies are incarcerated scholars learning through peer-to-peer mentorship? And I think you kind of, Jimmy just kind of answered some of that.
Yeah. Many times when students don't understand a subject, we try to find like the most educated person to teach it. Peer-to-peer mentorship is huge within the Pelican Bay Scholars Program itself. We're learning the best ways to succeed, such as study strategies, accountability and responsibility for, like turning in work on time and just making it to school.
For sure, thank you. And a question for the both of you, and we're almost on our last two questions. What are your plans? Do you plan to continue your education after your release? Matt,
I do.
That's a question for you, Matt. Both of you, no?
I actually do plan on continuing my education once I get out of prison. I'm probably next year, so I plan on attending Cal Poly Humboldt. So I'm looking forward to that.
For sure.
I myself currently working on a parole date. I'm also interested in pursuing my education, maybe in the social sciences. There's other things that attract my attention, like graphic arts, or even becoming a chef, because you got to think about, I'm an older person, so I got to think about what's going to benefit me once I step out of prison. But at the same time, I want to create like a prevention practice for younger kids who may be at risk, because you have gang prevention, you have a gun prevention, you got drug prevention, but you never have a real prevention for what the system does to us. You know what I'm saying? So to me, to talk about how the economic aspect of a family, the nucleus family, how they are affected because the mom has to work, the dad has to work, everybody's out of the house, you're living by yourself or you're doing things by yourself. I want to bring awareness to things that, okay, if you're by yourself, you also got to think, okay, what can I do to improve my family's, prosperity? Not only that, why would you want to go into an institution that's dogmatic or has rules or just regulates your behavior and makes you a person who's not going to be successful? So like I said, I want to get involved with advocacy. I want to be able to bring awareness to kids who I believe are better, suited for success and for something greater, where we could actually make an impact within our community.
And a question, Jimmy, do you have a parole board hearing date?
I go to board next year, and I'm currently getting ready, participating in self-help, participating in school. So yeah, I got a parole day coming up, so I'm working towards it.
Let me know when, and I would like to write your letter of support, man.
Thank you.
And so this is the last question that I have for the both of you. And I think it's a question that I find very important, right? And it's something that I always talk about the power of education and the power that it has to change prison culture, right? I did my educational experience in the SHU in Pelican Bay. And I remember people from all different walks of life, right? From Northern California, Southern California, Black, white, brown, that were very instrumental in my educational experience while in the SHU, right? And it wasn't nothing about, well, you're from that side, I can't talk to you. No, people were very engaging and we supported each other in learning, right? We turned our pods into learning communities, right? And I wanted to ask, in your own personal experience, what effect does a post-secondary education program have on incarcerated people and the prison culture at Pelican Bay State Prison?
Personally, I believe post-secondary education is the best rehabilitated program because it has a positive impact on the prison culture itself. Before there was much education in prison, I remember I've been incarcerated 20 years. So before like 2013, you see like different groups and we weren't really interacting with each other. So after, people start getting educated, you break those barriers and you start associating with each other, getting to know each other. And we realize that you have a lot more in common than you have different. And that makes for a more peaceful environment.
Myself, I gotta say that growing up in a marginalized community and like I said, going to school only when you wanted to because your parents worked and not being able to complete some of us our education, like getting past the 8th grade or the 9th grade, whatnot. And coming to prison, a lot of us kind of gave up on education, and we came in here with the basic understanding of certain things, whether it be just simply adding or just learning how to, or knowing how to write. We didn't have much education. So when we came to prison, or we came into these institutions and we started to find education, whether it was through books, through somebody teaching us, or through college, we started to find within ourselves that we had a lot of potential, and we started to develop that potential. And now that this college is in prison and it's giving us the opportunity to actually flourish, a lot of us take this, with great value, and we accept it because we want to become those people that everybody doubted, everybody casted doubt on. So being able to educate ourselves or being educated and we're able to better advocate for ourselves. We're also better able to help others and bring that voice, bring that to the people's awareness, because a lot of times, see, we're so isolated because we're in Pelican Bay. So a lot of times we're behind these trees, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of this because you were up here yourself. So we're hidden, but there's people who are here, there's a fertile soil here of people who are actually just full of potential and who are willing to learn and want to learn. But sometimes, like I said, the lack of space is not available to us. But if we're able to give these people that space, and we're able to provide them an education and help them through their journey, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will go out there and be successful and will change things around. And you're a prime example.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man. That was the end of the questions, right? And we still have about like 13 more minutes, right? If we can either wrap this up, or if folks in the audience want to ask any questions, this is a great opportunity to do that, right? But we were able to finish, almost like 13 minutes ahead of schedule. That was pretty good. So if no one has any questions, I guess, I can kind of give a few thoughts, right, about this conversation, right? First of all, just, thank you for your time and for your for being here with us today, right? Really appreciate that. And I know that, I think it was Jaime, Jimmy, you participated in some of the feedback that we asked, right? Right, when we so one of the things when we convened the Smart Justice think tank, for us, it was important that when we brought folks together across the state that are experts and formerly incarcerated leaders in this work, and we put together the best practices, it was agreed upon that we wanted to make sure, as we were discussing the best practices when it pertains to prisons, that we get the perspective from those who are incarcerated. So we sent the best practices to about 6 programs and asked them to select some students to provide feedback. And Jimmy was one of those students that provided feedback on the best practices, right? And for us, it was important to get that student, that incarcerated student voice, heard in the best practices, right? So we were intentional about that, right? And again, we were trying to be intentional as we move forward with, bringing these best practices out into the community. We wanted to make sure that we also included folks that are currently incarcerated in these discussions, and that's why you are here today, right? And your participation was powerful, to say the least, right? And some of the things that kind of stood out for me was the issue about space, right? We have a lot of these prisons, a lot of these programs have these long waiting lists of folks trying to enroll in college education, and it's the issue of space, right? And so these students, right, or these scholars just kind of give us some ideas of what can be done, right, to increase access to those that are on wait lists, right? Also, it's very important, right, like for us to, as students especially, right, the learning of patience and time management, right? That's, as I said, that's something that I'm still dealing with, right? And it's just something that comes with the experience of incarceration, right? A lot of us carry that trauma, that PTSD, that anxiety, that depression, right? And sometimes, we can get stuck in our head, right? And are unable to move, right? So it's important that, not just on the outside for folks to have access to mental health, but also on the inside, right? And mental health that looks at them from a holistic perspective, right? And not just a number, right? We need mental health services that are going to center the students first, right? And also for me, it took me a long time to come out of this mindset that talking to a therapist was a sign of weakness. And I realized that it's actually not. It's a sign of strength to actually ask somebody when you need help, right? But it takes a lot out of us to even do that, right? Because we were never conditioned to ask for help. We were always conditioned to do it on our own. And, sometimes those results don't end up the way we want to, right? And so the last part, you both of you talked about wanting to bring awareness, right? And I really appreciate that, right? That you're taking your life experience with the purpose of wanting to educate others, right? Especially the youth, right? Who are getting caught up in these school to prison pipeline, right? And trying to figure out ways, how do we dismantle that? And I think that, as Matt said, right? Those who have experienced the problem of incarceration are best situated to create the solutions, right? And I think this here is a solution to the issue. Thank you very much, y'all.
Danny, we do have a few questions on the Q&A. So if you want, I'll read those off.
All right, well, let me take my check then back. No.
So the first question says, how difficult is it to enroll in classes that you may need now that all inmates have priority for? So the priority goes for enrollment to short timers as opposed to long-term inmates. So is it difficult to enroll in those classes that you need sooner rather than later?
It's been an easy process because once you sign the paperwork and you submit it to a coordinator, they put you, like I said, on a waiting list, but the waiting list sometimes moves up quicker or it moves slower depending on the space available. So when it comes to people being transferred out, if a person was a little bit ahead of you, then you move on to the next, you move on to this space. So it's a fairly quick process, and it's not that complicated.
Yeah, with College of Redwoods, their system is pretty quick, especially if you need to enroll into like your mandatory classes to transfer to university. From my experience, it's been real easy. I think what held me back from getting my degree was more so COVID, because I wasn't able to get a lab. But other than that, it's been a pretty easy experience.
And the next question asks, what degrees do both Matt and Jimmy currently have or are in the process of obtaining?
All right, I currently have associates in behavioral social science and then one in sociology for transfer. I'm looking forward to obtaining my bachelor's in English. So
I currently 6 units away from having an associate's in behavioral science. And upon release, well, like I said, I would like to pursue my BA, and I'm still a little indecisive because I have to plan my future accordingly.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
We have another question that says, what would you say to students who are feeling overwhelmed by college courses and other weights on their shoulders who may be thinking of just giving up?
I myself would say don't give up, because a lot of times it's easy to take that easy road. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us, that's what we did when we were younger. We took that easy path, whether it be to money, to other things that were just easily given to us. So in order to be successful, it takes work, dedication, and commitment. You want to be able to be proud of the things you've done. To me, what I see as an example is my mother, a small lady of 5'10", came from Mexico and didn't know a lick of English, was able to establish a home, was able to give us food, was able to give us clothing. She was able to do a lot of things that a lot of us take for granted. So I would say being able to just stick it out and think about what your parents have done for you and where you're at now. So for you to just give up on your dreams or your hopes or anything, you just can't. You got to fight. You got to put yourself in a spot where you're going to be successful. And I mean, you're going to make your family, happy and proud of you, because I mean, you're putting the time and effort to, you're representing them. So it's all about heart. It's about heart, spirit, and dedication.
I'll just say, don't forget to breathe. Stuff's going to get hectic. It's going to be stressful. But as long as you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Our next question asks, what has been your favorite college courses so far? And do you feel that this college experience has provided an avenue of empowerment?
For myself, it's been, I got 3: English 1A, English 1B, and sociology. English 1A provided me a way to learn more about critical thinking. I was able to understand how to write a proper essay. English 1B dove deep into, interpretation, which is something that I like, playing with similes, metaphors, and understanding, characters, or just learning about a bigger, picture for myself, right? And sociology, I've always been fascinated with society and how it's structured and the stratification and just the problems. One of my, conflict theory, like, to me, one of my idols and favorite philosophers has always been Marx. So it's always been something that I myself would want to pursue, sociology. So those are the 3 that I would say.
You'd be surprised. A lot of formerly incarcerated people pursue sociology.
Yeah.
Me personally, I've taken every English course Redwood's offered. So before I started college, I couldn't write for anything, but now I love writing. It's giving me a way to express myself and a voice in a place where that's kind of difficult to do. So I take English any chance I get.
Our next question says, what would you want students who are entering prison for the first time to know about educational programs?
To me, if I could bring them along and really talk to them, I would tell them, don't waste your time on watching TV. Don't waste your time on things that are not going to benefit you or help you grow. I think learning how to occupy your time, learning how to be a better person, a better contributor to your situation, meaning that don't create problems for yourself. So if I could talk to a person and tell them, you know what, these are my errors, these are my mistakes, these were my bad choices that I made when I was maybe your age, I would tell them that don't follow my path, but think about going to school. And one thing that I normally do with younger cats that come to prison, I loan them books that have been inspirational to me and have helped me transform my way of thinking. There's a couple books that whether it be Pancho Villa, whether it be even Che Guevara, or a different type of books that have molded my way of thinking. So I share them with these guys because it gives them a sense of identity. And so that's another thing that I think a lot of guys come in here without identity. So we have to create identity. So that's my approach.
I would tell them, find a positive role model. There's a lot of negative stuff out there on the yards, but there's also a lot of positive. So find someone that, can mentor you. The education programs are there. No one's going to do them for you. So you have to just be proactive, go sign up and take the initiative, to change your life.
I will say one thing, right? I remember for a long time, I was one of those who watched TV all day, Mexican, Days of Our Lives, As the World Turns. But
General Hospital.
Once I got to the SHU and I started really dedicating myself to my education, I was able to use the television as a learning tool. And most of the stuff that I was watching was on PBS, right? Like Nova, Democracy Now, Bill Moyer's Journal, those things right there were, to a certain extent, were educational if you applied your critical analysis to what was being shared, right? Because you could just watch it and not pay attention, but if you watch it with intention and critical analysis, they are educational, and there's something that you can get out of it, right? But not necessarily out of everything. Like Mexican novelas are just,
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. And it says, what message do you have for students that are formerly incarcerated and going to school and are having a hard time in their newfound freedom?
I would say, just take your time. You don't have to be in a rush. Just remember the promises and the dreams that you had in here and follow through with them. You don't have to get everything done as soon as possible. Just take baby steps and gradually you'll achieve your success.
I would say the same thing. I would say that think about the lost time that they had in here, because a lot of times you do have lost time with family, you do have lost time with your children, you have lost time with people who matter. So why not focus on what you got in front of you and actually how you could impact those, whether it be your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, your kids. Why not focus on that and think about just how much time was spent in prison and a lot of things weren't accomplished because you weren't able to go to school or you just were having a bad day or we were experiencing whether it be a COVID lockdown or a regular lockdown. Those things have to factor in when you think about just the negativity. You got to twist those negativities into positive things. So that's something I would say. Think about what you have now, because a lot of us would want to have that opportunity, would want to be out there and would want to take this, the advantage of these programs in this education, because like I said, why not help out versus becoming a problem or being a burden to your society?
Well, I do want to say that I'm not sure if you all have access to see the chat messages, but you have 80 to 90 participants that are rooting for you, both of you as well. Everyone's sending really great messages. They love the poem. They love y'all's responses. And, including ourselves, you have like 90 other individuals rooting for you as well. So thank you all for wanting to be a part of this conversation and for teaching us a lot as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alrighty, so thank you all so much to all of our panelists for this insightful conversation. We also want to extend our gratitude to the audience for attending this robust discussion that will hopefully serve many incarcerated and justice impacted students and communities. If you'd like to sign the pledge and download the affirmation best practices, we will drop the link to both of those in the chat. We'll also post the recording of today's discussion on our YouTube channel, the Michelson 20mm Foundation, by this time tomorrow. The next webinar in this series will take place on January 18th, 2023. And in the meantime, you can stay engaged by signing up for our newsletter at 20mm.org to receive news and updates about our Smart Justice initiative, as well as our other events and programs. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.